Hi friends, I'm Mike, and today I'll do a quick chat about the German election. The results: Germany has voted for sanity, and Trump is still a moron. Of course, I need to take a few minutes to react to the outcome of the German election, given that I've done so much to talk about the parties beforehand. First off, it's good that this election went more or less as the polls indicated. When we've seen the level of polling errors that have dominated US elections, it's hard not to worry that something similar could be happening in Germany, right? So the fact that Germany voted more or less in line with polls where the AfD is concerned is a relief, given the strong campaigning for them by Elon Musk. It's also good to see that there are still countries where an asshole billionaire is appropriately dismissed by the voting population. One amusing thing, I don't know if you saw this, but Trump actually tweeted about the CDU's win and acted like this was some kind of victory for him. This despite the fact that Merz actually offered the strongest and most immediate reaction to J.D. Vance's speech and the entire Trump administration by making it clear that he understands that Europe now basically has to make the US irrelevant in negotiations about Ukraine and Russia and to Europe's security. Also, it might be good to look at where the German political spectrum actually lies. Let's see. Now, if you look at it in a two-dimensional way, it kind of looks like this. But for simplicity, I'm going to flatten it into a one-dimensional view because it's easier to explain. So going from left to right, here's Die Linke and BSW, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht. Here are the Greens, kind of overlapping with the SPD. Here we have the CDU-CSU, making up the center-right, then the FDP, and then the AfD. For historical reference, here we would have roughly had Mussolini, and then there's the former German party we won't mention by name. Now, just to give you a sense of scale of this spectrum, during the 20 years I spent in the US, I was a totally committed Democrat. It would never have occurred to me to vote Republican, and I consistently found almost all of what George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Trump, and also other candidates like Mitt Romney had to say revolting, racist, judgmental, anti-democratic, corrupt, and heartless warmongering. That's what I came away with. Now, when I actually take the Wahlomat in Germany, which is this tool where you put in whether you agree or disagree with different party platform talking points, just based on what I think, naively going into it, are reasonable, left-leaning but pragmatic policies in line with where I would hope democracy would go, I land here. FDP. Always here. I can include all parties into my survey, including all minor ones, and the FDP will always be the top choice suggested by Wahlomat based on their platform, in theory. In practice, I don't think they're competent enough to govern, and I think they recently proved it. But by a European country's political spectrum's standard, the American left, which Trump still likes to criticize as extreme left, is somewhere between the ultra-libertarian and actual right-wing fascist parties, while the Republicans are somewhere around Mussolini and Adolf Hitler himself at this point, which we're increasingly seeing clear proof of. So the CDU, our center-right party, is safely to the left of the American Democrats, with maybe the exception of the US's more centrist Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wing. Basically, their supporters are pretty much the only ones who actually aren't right-wing extremists. Now, I do need to quickly focus on the new kid on the block in Germany, Die Linke. This has been a genuine surprise. And once again, we have to assume that social media manipulation by foreign powers has played a very big and sudden role in our German election. However, the influence isn't coming from Russia. The pro-Russia part of Die Linke, which was Russia's mouthpiece in Germany throughout most of the time since World War II, has splintered off and formed the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht. But that doesn't mean Die Linke is now a natively German leftist party. Oh no. They seem to have simply pivoted and become China's mouthpiece in Germany. Their platform still supposes that shrinking NATO and stopping weapons deliveries to Ukraine can still allow Ukraine to get a fair and lasting peace deal, but what's needed is really for China to step up its wonderful role in ensuring global security. No need for NATO to arm up. China will take care of it. Germans can rest assured that peace on the European continent will be guaranteed by its friendly big brother in the Far East. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that it's probably because of how effective they are at working TikTok. Every election year, before the actual Bundestagswahl, there's a mock election specifically for teenagers under 18. In other words, the people trying to conspire with TikTok. And look at that. Die Linke actually is the top party in all of Germany amongst that voting population right now, which is why they had such a surprisingly strong showing and why I do not support a vote for 16 to 18-year-olds. This means that there's still some really bad news for Europe here, and Europe really needs to get off its ass and develop its own social network that can compete with how cool kids find TikTok, so they can run their algorithms to actually support centrist parties in a way that can engage a young audience and that won't read anything and will be swayed by 15-second snippets to trigger their emotions without challenging the fact that no one expresses any message of any depth, nor even so much as an actual argument for anything in 15 seconds. Just the last sentence took me more than 15 seconds to say. Basically, anyone who's even literate enough to and adept enough at punctuation to string multiple sentence clauses together is guaranteed not to surface on TikTok or influence the thinking of anyone under the age of 20, which is a real problem. Now, another thing I have to call out is that at this point it's actually really unfortunate that the AfD specifically has this poison pill around Russia and Muskism. Else, I would support them in coalition with the CDU, while I still hate them, just to defang them, to make them less dangerous. Look at the FDP. Besides not being Russia's tool, they're the closest thing to the AfD. And they tried to position themselves as an opposition to the rest of the coalition for the last year, riding the line between participating and differentiating themselves from the actual government. But as you can see, once you're in the coalition, you just can't win against discontent anymore, which is why they dropped off the map. And now I would predict that the AfD, if they were in coalition with the CDU for the next 4 years, would also drop back off the radar after a 4-year stint because they would lose their outsider status as well. The only problem is that they're so hardcore pro-Russia and anti-European security that they basically want to undo the German reunification and then redo it, but in the other direction. Just look at who in Germany voted for them. Frankly, I'm increasingly okay with the first part of their plan. I'd say we can throw them into any Russian peace deal where Russia leaves Ukraine, goes back to the 2014 borders, and Ukraine joins NATO and the EU. You get that, Russia? You leave Ukraine, Ukraine goes back to the pre-2014 borders and joins NATO and the EU, and you get East Germany. Deal. I'll take it any day. But anyway, the AfD's support for Russia is a total poison pill. That makes it impossible to include them in a coalition because they would tank European security. It's also a poison pill that guarantees them their continued outsider status, and that means they'll remain a serious threat in the foreseeable future. Or until the war in Ukraine is thoroughly over, at which point the risk they would present would be lower and it would be safer to include them in a coalition maybe next time. By the way, just so we're clear, I'm not saying any of this because I like the AfD. I literally can't stand them. Alice Weidel, with her manipulative, smug, constant lies every time she opens her mouth, makes my fucking skin crawl. I tried listening to her talk to Musk and the speech in Magdeburg, and I absolutely couldn't get through more than a few minutes of each segment. I can literally listen to Trump's babbling or Musk's insane yet somehow intelligent-sounding ravings for longer than I can possibly stomach listening to any member of the AfD that I've come across. I just think that they'll remain a threat until they're thoroughly ruined by actually being included in a government, so that they have to expose their utter incompetence. Okay, so I'm okay with the CDU-CSU win. It's unfortunate that the Greens didn't get enough votes to form a coalition with them, because that would guarantee the strongest possible support for Ukraine and European democracy. However, it would also mean that Germany would under no circumstances revive nuclear power. With the SPD, it might be possible to bring nuclear power back just because their position, while opposed to it, may be more moderate, and the CDU is in favor. We'll see. Support for Ukraine should be stronger with the CDU than it has been with the SPD, so I think Merz remains committed to avoiding the AfD because of the imminent threat they present to democracy in Europe. Germany will definitely need a strategy for coping with Die Linke, but that can be done over the next few years. Social networks come and go. They'll figure something out. I definitely slept well last night after the election. and I'll sleep well tonight as well. In conclusion, as always, I hope you found this engaging, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.